Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Well, happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to USAPrepares.com. This is Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli, and I've got a personal disclaimer. Dr. Norm Shealy was supposed to be on today, and apparently Missouri is seeing a lot of flash flooding going on, and he won't be able to make it. I literally got a call from Vince a half an hour ago. So if I run out of material, you'll hear me singing 1970s disco songs. I already told Jason, who's engineering the program, and thank you, Jason, in Minnesota, to make sure he's not hearing things. Because when I sing, I sound like a wounded moose with its foot stuck in the mud. And you can usually market those skills to Alaskan outfitters for wolf hunting. So, all pun aside, Dr. Shealy will not make it this week, and I'm going to monologue today. Tomorrow, Vince and I are going to get together and talk about preparedness. We're going to talk ideas and solutions. We're going to talk about building a database of business, of commerce, using people who are patriots, who are Americans, who want to live off the land. And we're going to talk about all these ideas and solutions. You know, as you regular listeners know, I live off the grid, and I think teaching people about nature and self-sufficiency and tangibility, common sense, logic is so important today because there's so much uncertainty. And I read an article, I don't know if it's one of the articles I'm going to talk about today, but they're going to really start rationing electricity and power to the people because one of the main agendas, which you've heard me talk about the agenda many times, is depopulation. That's one of the reasons population expanded over several decades, especially post-World War II, is because we had new technologies, new innovations, new access to energy. Well, the powers that be want to reduce or eliminate that. So we need to talk about buying land, you know, from the micro and the macro benefits of buying tangible land and the skill sets. You know, when people say that they live off grid, it almost doesn't do the definition justice, because most people associate that with not being hooked up to corporate electricity. Obviously, there's a lot more than that, because with me living off-grid, I bet I've visited at least 200 homes that live off-grid. Everybody does it differently. Depends on their skill sets, on their capital resources, on what kind of land they have. Do they have a stream where they can have hydro? Most people have solar. Some people have wind or supplemental wind. Depends on your battery bank, the size of your batteries, how many amp hours you have, how many watts of solar panels you have, how many appliances you have, and that's almost analogous to how rugged you're willing to live, et cetera, et cetera. So all these things we can talk about in more detail. The importance of raising animals to produce food, you know, like the chicken. I've had chickens in Montana now. I've been living on this property for about 15 years, and I've had chickens the whole time. Now, if I didn't have guard dogs, I wouldn't have chickens, I wouldn't have goats, I wouldn't even have a carrot in the garden because of all the grizzlies and things that I have here. But if you combine combine them all, think about the lack of waste of food. You know, between the dogs like Great Pyrenees and goats and chickens and a compost pile, I have zero waste. Zero. The only thing that pretty much goes in the garbage is glass, which is not much of that these days. And we can talk about hunting and fishing. We can talk about canning and preserving foods, handgun defense. I think our Constitution right now and our Bill of Rights is just so important to discuss financial counseling in our economy so you can understand what equity, principal, interest, amortization schedules are. I think it's important to know about wild, edible, and medicinal plants, which I've been harvesting for many years. It's not something you just send your kid out the back door to pick greens for your salad. It takes knowledge, it takes skill sets, and there's consequences regarding what you choose. And some consequences could be deadly, so you have to do your reading and research on them. And speaking of plants, I think it's so important to know about nutrition. When I interviewed Dr. Norm Shealy in the past, we talk a lot about nutrition and many subsets underneath that. I think it's so important right now to talk about homeschooling ideas. And, of course, gardening/farming in general is extremely important. So that's what we'll be talking about with Vince tomorrow, and hopefully we can give you some good information. I just think it's really important to start a database right now of like-minded people, and not just for commerce, but it could also be for people who might not have the capital resources to buy a piece of land. In other words, maybe they don't have enough money to buy the piece of land that they want. Now, let's say we create a database like this, and we get contacts from Tom, Dick, and Harry, Jane, and Sue. I know I use those names a lot, but, you know, there's a reason why I do, because Tom, Dick, and Harry has always been the analogous names from the 60s and 70s that people have used. So let's say Tom, Dick, and Harry says, well, I can't afford a piece of land, but I really want to live off the grid. I really want to expand my skill sets. I really want to eat nutritional food. So let's say Jane is an expert in gardening, and she knows about the importance of getting heirloom open-pollinated seeds. So we get Jane into the picture, and let's say Tom can't afford it, but Jane can't afford it. But let's say Sue is an older person, and she's established, and she has a little more capital resources, but she doesn't want to put in the labor. So what we do is we're going to create a database of getting like-minded individuals together that want to work with each other, and everything will be on contract, in paper, no surprises, and we basically consult with the Tom, Dick, and Harry, Jane, and Sue's, combining skill sets, cross-training, and creating goals and dreams to come true, because I think every baby in the forest can realize now that living in urban, suburban America, especially these blue states, are very dangerous places to be, especially when you have the Bill Gates and Bezos and people of that ilk in the world buying up all the land, whether it be ranch land, farm land, and it's going to make resources, food, and health a lot tougher to find. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow, me and Vince, and we'll welcome your calls, which I've been, for the last few months now, I've been really trying hard to give as much information to the public as possible. And I'm going to continue to do that. I'm looking at my my database here and all the articles that I am going to discuss with you. So pardon me if I'm not as fluid, but like I said, Vince literally called me a half an hour ago, and I really thought I was going to interview Dr. Norm Shealy, and because of the flash floods in Missouri, obviously that didn't happen. So I'm going to start out, before I mention articles, news articles. Let's talk about winning or losing. Let's say we were playing a 5-card poker game. 5 cards, doesn't matter. It's just a 5-card poker game. And let's say one guy has enough official authorities and crooked media behind him to create alibis and excuses. And this one guy, we can call him Joe, doesn't matter. Let's say he has more than 5 cards. He has a card up each sleeve. He has a card in his waist belt. Look, he has a card in his pocket. But he won the game. See, what's happening in America today is we no longer have legitimacy of official authorities and experts. That means there's no value. When you have no value in big corporations, in your government, because there's so much proof that certain people at the top of these institutions literally sold you out for the benefit of only representing the elite, you have to start thinking outside the box. And we've been talking on this show. I've been on the air for 10 years. I've been on Vince's show for the majority of that. And we talk about preparedness. We talk about ideas and solutions. We talk about consulting other people on what type of land to buy, what's going to be the best options for you. And I think, and I get a lot of contacts from people. I had a young man, 28 years old, contact me a few days ago. Long story short, he wanted to know what to do. I get calls from people all the time saying, Rich, I can't get a job. They say I'm white. They say I'm male. They say I'm heterosexual. They say all this stuff. They say, I cannot get a job. They will not hire me. And we've talked about this in great detail and specificity for years. So what do you do when the agenda is depopulation, reducing and eliminating supply and demand, eliminating cash, eliminating the Federal Reserve note, and eliminating prosperity and the ability to control your own destiny? I only have one thing to say right now, because America is so corrupt. I think people can realize that when you look at the agenda, the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, everything being delegitimized, academia, work, we look at all the fraud that's happened. We're asking ourselves, what happened to our military? Do they still take the word oath? Does duty still mean anything, or is it in question? So people don't know where to go when they see the bankers, the politicians, healthcare workers, politicians being installed who are obviously not elected, courts, judges, lawyers, votes, elections. People can see that we're not in a left-right paradigm. It's an authoritarian, totalitarian, fascist, corrupt, tyrannical communist insurrection. 200 million people can't come up with $1,000. That's where we're at. And this is why we're pushing land and self-sufficiency. I'll be right back after the break, folks. Appreciate you being here. Yes, everybody. Rich Scheben from Montana sitting in for Vincent Finelli. And again, Dr. Shealy will not be on today. Apparently there's some flash floods in Missouri, and that has detained him from coming on the show. So I just wanted to remember, well, before I even go to that, I just want to remind everybody that Vince and I will be on tomorrow. And we're going to talk about preparedness, ideas, and solutions, creating databases, talking about the importance of buying land, living on land, and being self-sufficient. Because, as I was mentioning in my rant before the break, as we have entered, or let me put it this way, as we've left the land of the free and the home of the brave, and we've entered an authoritarian, totalitarian, fascist, corrupt, tyrannical, communist insurrection, where the middle class is being eliminated, and every beneficiary is only for the elite. That includes rules, laws, accountability, the whole works. And we see a situation where there's no consumer confidence, no consumer trust in the system. It's about as low as you can get, and probably as low as it's ever been in the history of America. And commerce, economy, future prosperity, opportunity is being extremely limited. And you're getting a job based on what group you're in, not merit. So no more merit for advancement or opportunities. It's just based on your group, pretty much 100% right now. And if you disagree, they're going to throw every divide and conquer strategy at you. But if you're willing to snitch, tattletale, or sell out your fellow Americans for the benefit of the elite, you have an opportunity of getting one or two more crumbs. So the whole world have seen the obvious, overwhelming election fraud, the election heist, and the whole world knows it. Everybody saw it. So this means America, its rule of law and constitution, means very little. They're going after free speech. They're going after all the Bill of Rights, despite over 1 million people, soldiers, combat soldiers, giving our life for these freedoms and liberties. So again, the beneficiaries will only go to the people who already have theirs. And that's why you hear so many celebrities and athletes who have signed on the dotted line of being bought and paid for and throwing the people under the bus. That's why they have theirs. So the bottom 93% of income earners will no longer have representation. Freedom, liberty, justice, democracy, rule of law, protection, rights, and restitution of the rule of law, gone. So, I want to remind everybody, when America has called countries in the past banana republics, what did that mean? It means that it's a failed state. And what I try and do, the reason why I give a lot of objective facts, I give articles published in the public domain, is because I'm not big on theories, speculation, hoaxes, propaganda, false flags, lies. This is the information given to us by the mainstream media and other sources to keep the people in the dark. What we try to do is give objective facts in lieu of subjective emotional opinion, so you know what's coming. And that's why 99% of my sources, again, are published articles in the public domain. And I use that as a disclaimer in a sense because some of what's happening is so surreal, so illegal, so fraudulent, so corrupt, so hysterical. You have to open your mind to see all the fraud that they're throwing at us to deceive us. I'll be right back, folks. Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli, and Dr. Norm Shealy will not be in because of flash floods in Missouri. So Vince called me a half an hour before the show and said, "You're monologuing." I said, "Okay." So here we go. And after I'm done with my rants, I'm going to go into articles and news that are updated information. And before the break ended, I was talking about how what America used to call banana republics, which it looks like we are one. And the answer is a failed state. And I know a lot of people were calling for, and I read, even my comments is based on published articles in the public domain. I read so much about how so many people were expecting martial law, forensic checks on ballots and machines. And it's really a shame because I've been reading and talking to a lot of military and recently retired military. And the common consensus is by reading and listening is that our top brass is bought and paid for. That words like duty, code, honor, and oath now have gone to the highest bidder. In other words, we are now a country run by foreign powers. To put it a different way, the people in charge that could have did forensic checks on our ballots and machines to create authenticity, consumer confidence, and trust in our most sacred elections. What they've done is just spit on all the graves of the 1+ million combat soldiers who gave their life for this country. Today's soldiers are asking themselves, what are they doing there? Who are they fighting for? They're saying, should they rip their American flag off their uniform, off their shoulder and chest, and put a $sign in replacement? Our military was supposed to be our last line of defense for the rule of law and the Constitution. But if that's gone, if nobody's willing to do investigations, look at evidence, how do you think our special forces feel, guys? People who gave everything to give up their life for this country. I want you to think about those poor guys who have the Navy SEALs, the Green Berets, the Rangers, all the special forces. Think about what they're thinking right now. You know, I had a friend call me the other day, and I was watching a movie about baseball, believe it or not. And I know it's football season, I don't even care. I have not watched a game, I have not watched a playoff game, and I do not plan on watching the Super Bowl. I know who's in it, but I just don't care. Just don't care. Because they're mostly sellouts for their own personal benefit against the American people. So, think about, I gave this a quick baseball analogy to this friend of mine who called, and what started the conversation is he sent out an article on Dr. Simone Gold, frontline doctors talking about basically the hoaxes of masks and the COVID agenda. And as you always hear me say, it is a real virus, it is a bioweapon, mostly because of the timing and the agenda. It's 1% virus, 99% agenda for the reset, to take away our freedoms, our liberty, our rule of law, Constitution, and either buy everybody out at the top levels or blackmail them. So going back to this baseball analogy, let's say there was a scoreboard operator. Let's say his name was Joe. I guess it could be Chuck. Oh, that would be sexist, so let's create a female name. Oop, can't say female anymore. Sorry, my bad. But let's just say, let's call her, oop, is her a proper pronoun? Oops, my bad. But let's call that third scoreboard operator, let's say her name was Nancy. And let's say that the red team, let's call it the red team versus the blue team, because God forbid, oop, I said God, oop, my apologies, my bad. But let's say I said a team's name and the mascot generic name at the end wasn't a politically correct verb, noun, or adjective. So let's just say the red team. And yes, I am being facetious here as well, but I'm also making a point. Let's say the red team scores 12 runs in 9 innings. The blue team scores 2 votes. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant runs. Pardon me, I misspoke. But let's say that the scoreboard operator, named Joe, Chuck, or Nancy, changes the votes. I mean the runs, pardon me. See, I keep misspeaking here. Let's say they change the runs electronically, because all the scoreboards are electronic today, right? So let's say, even though the red team scored 12 runs and the blue team scored 2 runs, the electronic scoreboard operator said the blue team won by 5-4. Let's say there was thousands, millions of witnesses, plenty that would sign affidavits. There's videos. You can see the TV literally flipping the runs, live time. Let's say you took this to court. You talked to the judges, the baseball commissioner. You brought in the umpires. You brought in people in the stands, people who were watching live on TV. And the judges, the baseball commissioner, the umpires, were all bought and paid for or blackmailed, said they're not willing to see the evidence. Would baseball have any more credibility, any more validity? Would people continue to watch the game? I don't think so. Bread and circuses, right, folks? Part of the distractions. I've given thousands over the 10 years of evidence and examples of distractions, dumbing down, and divide and conquer strategies. Now people can see it, can't they? But you know what else I also talk about? I talk about ideas and solutions. Me and Vince do that all the time. In fact, everybody on USAPrepares.com spends a lot of time on ideas and solutions. We don't always say ideas and solutions, but we talk about them. Well, here's a really good idea and solution. And I'm going to call out Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, Mike Lindell, Lynn Wood. Come on, Lynn. You've been bashed more than anybody. Steve Bannon, Alex Jones, all the people on alternative media. Here's a great idea. I've been calling for 5 years for a We the People Patriot Party, a constitutional party. Doesn't matter which one of those 3 names that you use. Don't care if you use any of them. I've been saying this for years. Let's have, if the courts are bought and paid for, if our judges, lawyers, and courts have sold out and only represent the elite, that's called betrayal, folks. Let's have our own public opinion trial. Giuliani, Powell, Ellis, Lindell, Wood, Bannon, Jones, all you guys. Let's come out to Montana to a private venue on a ranch, bring Right Side Broadcasting out here. We have enough evidence to have a trial, to have a hearing, to see who really won the election. Instead of all this election fraud and the powers that be literally threatening law-abiding citizens against free speech. Let's come to Montana, go to a private ranch. I only have 40 acres left here. I would let you use my property, but I don't think it'll be enough. Let's have a private venue hearing that goes public on the internet. Steve Bannon's got his servers. Alex Jones got his servers. America, AON has its servers. We have, I think Newsmax might have their own servers. I think we have a lot of different choices on, Zero Hedge, I think, has its own servers. I think Breitbart has its own services. The Daily Caller might. Citizen Free Press, I believe they do now. Mike Adams on Natural Health News, great website. The Gateway Pundit, awesome. There's no way they can block all of it unless they just eliminate the internet. This is what we should do. This is a solution for we, the people. I've given probably over 1,250 different objective facts on election fraud. And I can't even count how much evidence. It's out there. We all have it. We have the affidavits. We have the witnesses. We have the videos. We have the photos. We have the audio. Let's have a real hearing, a real trial to decide who won at a public venue in Montana. Greg Gianforte, line it up. This would work. This would work. So what I'm going to do now, folks, is talk about more articles. And the first one is AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, wants Congress to stamp out First Amendment to stop false information from spreading. That's code for we don't want free speech. We don't want to teach or learn to the people. We want to eliminate truth and only make propaganda, lies, false flags, hoaxes, and gaslighting the norm to control thought, control votes, and that's where we are. We'll be right back after the break, folks. Appreciate you being here. Welcome back to the broadcast, everybody. Rich Scheben from Montana sitting in for Vince Finelli, and I'm going to go to the next article here. Mitch McConnell reportedly threatened President Trump, if you pardon Julian Assange, we are going to make it much more likely that we convict you. You see, folks, we don't have a rule of law. We have threats, blackmail, bribery. The little guy has no representation. And when I say little guy, I don't mean bottom 10%. I mean the bottom 93%, at least. Do you know that, and I'm reading the article right now, by the way, in August of 2014, Colombian authorities discovered 90 pounds of cocaine on a cargo ship owned by the Foremost Group, a Beijing-tied shipping company run by James Chow, who happens to be Mitch McConnell's father-in-law. The same person who gave Cocaine Mitch and his wife, Elaine Chow, a $25 million gift. Are you connecting the dots, people? Next, in the first declassified Russian collusion document released, Christopher Steele admitted in September 2017 that he leaked this for the benefit of Hillary Clinton. And I am looking at an article right now. Actually, it's a D-class memo dated January 19th, 2021, very recent, talking about declassification materials to FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation. And basically there's notes on it saying that the FBI has continued objections to any further declassifications of the materials. How does the people get truth? How does the people believe in the system when there's no more rule of law, where the people who are supposed to be instituting the rule of law looks the other way? You know those people who get paid by hour tax dollars. Next article. Insider selling explodes to record highs as buybacks reemerge. And we've talked about that in a lot of detail. What stock buybacks are basically is to give the elite of those industries and companies, like CEOs, the ability to cash in stock options for no work, for no perceived value that's legitimate. What they do is they create more debt. They don't put the money into expansion or new products or new services or research and development or for new people, which are employees. Their goal is to boost earnings per share with new debt, which is usually sold to unsuspecting pension funds. And the executives cash and are the beneficiaries. And the wealthy, top few percent who can afford to buy those stocks, because there's less outstanding shares, so the price is going to go up. And they get to feather their own nest with increased value, and I'm using air quotes, or dividend production. But there's no value in the company. The company doesn't grow when you don't expand, when you don't invest in new products and services, into R&D, into new people and employees. It's all done for creative accounting. It's money shuffling for creative accounting, non-productive, non-earning purposes. It's not legitimate. Have you heard that term lately? Not legitimate? I've given so many talks about money coming out of thin air, the central banks, welfare for the rich, stock buybacks, fractional reserve lending, all this stuff. None of it's real. It's all a recalculated illusion. Okay. Next article. Biden inaugural video gets only 320 views on official White House YouTube channel. You can't make this stuff. Yeah. And Joe Biden won 81 million votes. Please send me a check. I have bridges for sale. They may be virtual bridges, but I have them for sale. Next article. Joe Biden's inaugural video is so unpopular, the official White House account has unlisted it from YouTube. Again, all published articles in the public domain. Not making this up. I'll be right back after the top of the hour break, folks. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. Rich Scheben from Montana, sitting in for Vincent Finelli. And Dr. Norm Shealy did not make it today because of flash floods in Missouri. Vince called me up half an hour before the show and said, go ahead and monologue. I said, okie dokie. So hopefully I have enough information and material and articles that I don't have to resort to singing 1970s disco music. I wonder if we could bring it back. What do you think? Do you think I can get a government grant? I don't think it's a politically correct enough topic. All right, so next article. YouTube caught red-handed removing dislikes from Biden White House page. Anything to fool the people. See, it's all about selling the narrative at all and any cost. I think people, at least on this broadcast, realize that it's now no longer, never really has been a left-right paradigm. It's a lot more, if everything now, an aristocracy, serfdom paradigm. Next article. Instagram is forcing users to follow Joe Biden White House account. So this is really pathetic, people. Instagram is forcing the users to follow Joe Biden even when they click to unfollow him. Again, this is a good time for me to mention my disclaimer. Do I do this because I'm being a little satirical? Yes. But I'm also doing it because it's real. It's hard to believe that these articles and what's happening in America actually exist. So that's why I have to make it very clear I do not make any of this stuff up. Everything I say, including comments, is based on real life published articles in the public domain. It's called reading and research. Next article. Joe Biden includes illegal aliens in census to determine congressional seats. So your electoral college, well, we all know that your vote doesn't mean anything anymore. Why should what you think mean anything? Why should the rule of law mean anything? It doesn't. Next, Twitter being sued for telling child porn victim that images of him at 13 years old didn't violate their terms of service. Again, my disclaimer. I say this, it's impossible to believe this is America. Let me repeat that article again. Twitter being sued for telling child porn victim that images of him at 13 years old didn't violate their terms of services. You can't make this stuff up. Next, U.S. military convoy of 40 trucks enters Syria. So now, not only do we stick our combat soldiers in basements with one bathroom, sleeping on the floor, now we're sending them to war. Next, Joe Biden sworn in as the 46th president, it's in quotes, by the way, of the United States. It's called a low-key event. Well, from my reading and research, there wasn't a couple thousand people there. There was a couple hundred people there. And the reason why it's low-key and virtual is because nobody showed up. That's why nobody would show up. That's why they covered all the grounds in flags. That's what virtual reality means. That's what big tech does. They make one person appear as 1,000 people, 1,000 opinions. That's how they do it. That's what virtual reality is, folks. Next, Biden forgets to salute the Marines during inauguration. If you remember what I started with in my monologue / rant in the beginning, when oath, duty, honor mean nothing, what are we all fighting for? When soldiers are thinking about ripping off the American flag off their uniform and replacing them with a $sign, it asks a lot of questions. Next, it's clear based on a comparison between President Trump's 2017 inauguration and Biden's inauguration that Biden has no support. That's a no duh article. Obviously, that's very obvious. Next, leaked evidence shows John Sullivan admitting to posing as a Trump supporter while being led inside Capitol building. That was a planned false flag. Little old me has given dozens of proof and evidence regarding this. This was a false flag set up, but now that facts and evidence and rule of law no longer trumps hoaxes, false flags, or political correctness, it doesn't matter, right? Next, Pelosi sends 5,000 National Guard troops to sleep in parking garage with one bathroom. I already mentioned that a few moments ago, but this is the actual article, in case you thought I was making this up. Trump offers D.C. hotel to National Guard troops sleeping in the parking garage. So you have Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats throwing our troops who are willing to put their life on the line for us and the Constitution. And these people have eliminated the Constitution, eliminated the rule of law, and then they get thrown into a parking garage, and President Trump offers his hotel for the troops and our police officers. Yeah, I read the articles. I've seen the photos. I'm not making this up. Next article. United Nations refugee expert will now control U.S. border security. I want you to think about that. America no longer controls its borders. Next, some good news. Montana lawmakers move to protect girls' sports after Biden signs order forcing schools to let transgender biological males compete against females. Again, not making this up. I know almost every article sounds surreal, that this is made up, this could not happen in America. I promise you, I am not making this up to sell a narrative. This is all happening. Next, Capitol Police removed barriers and allowed protesters to walk right into the Capitol. There's video proof. There's witnesses. There's affidavits. There's videos of patriots saying to the Capitol Police, why are you letting them do this? Why are you letting them, even though like 99% walked within the velvet ropes and basically self-toured. This is what they do. Everything on the left, especially the mainstream media, is propaganda, false flags, hoaxes, lies, and gaslighting. That's like 99.9% of their so-called information. Even the word information, when you have laws, facts, evidence, and all those definitions getting rewritten, trust me, everything's getting rewritten. Everything's a 1984 Orwellian theater. Next, Amazon fights mail-in ballots in union vote. Bezos and Amazon is saying there's too much fraud regarding mail-in votes. You cannot make this stuff up. Do you remember I talked about how Lynn Wood and Giuliani should get together and come to Montana on a private ranch, private venue, and literally create a trial to see who actually won? Let's call it the Bezos bill, because obviously Bezos and Amazon is not going to accept mail-in ballots for their union vote because there's too much fraud. I'm not making this stuff up. See, this is what happens, people. This is what it's all about. Is fraud. Just like, you have people like Navarro doing all this work and creating all these reports, if you will, talking about irregularities, illegalities. I mean, it includes dead voters, felon voters, ghost voters, mail-in registration beyond the deadline, too young voters, non-citizen voters, non-registered voters. I mean, on and on and on. And this is his third report, and his conclusion is Arizona. Okay, I am literally looking at it right now. I'm not making this stuff up. Everything I talk about is not made up. So Arizona, Biden's victory margin, and victories in quotes, by the way, was a little over 10,000. The possible illegal votes was over 254,000. Do the math, people. In Georgia, Biden apparently won by 11,000 and change. Illegal votes was 601,000 and change. I'm looking at it. I'm not making this stuff up. Michigan, Biden apparently won by 154,000 and change. The illegal votes was 446,000 and change. In Nevada, The victory margin, please keep in mind, victory is in quotes, has an asterisk, it's italicized, and it's got a line through it. 33,000 and change. Illegal votes, 220,000 and change. Pennsylvania, victory margin for Biden was 81,000 and change. Illegal votes, 992,000. Wisconsin, Biden victory margin 20,000 and change. Illegal votes 553,000. This was a landslide for President Trump. Landslide. Not making this stuff up, folks. We need to use facts. We need to use studies. Even Joe Van Pulitzer said 65 foreign countries participated in 7 key states, over 600 county polling locations. It's vetted and factual. It's a PDF on it. These are facts. These are evidence. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli. And before the break, I was talking about the irony of Jeff Bezos and Amazon saying that there's too much fraud for mail-in ballots for the union vote. So since Jeff Bezos is either number 1 or 2 richest people in the world, I think a Bezos bill should support and fund the new trial that's going to take place in Montana on a private venue by invitation only, where Giuliani, Linwood, Jenna Ellis, Sidney Powell, and the whole team create their own jury. We have all the evidence, and we'll call this the Bezos bill, since Jeff Bezos agrees that mail-in ballots have too much fraud. So now that we got Jeff Bezos on our side talking about election and voter fraud, that pretty much makes it very obvious that we can do the same. We can talk about the Georgia suitcase heist in the last minute with Ruby Freeman and her daughter and Ralph Jones Sr. in this suitcase hoist or heist or both, where there's videos of them running the same ballots through the machines at least 3 times, clearing out rooms of observers on video. Oh, and by the way, there's all this new audio that just keeps coming out that proves that they got caught. Ralph Jones announcing on November 3rd that he would stop at 11 p.m. to count the stashed suitcase ballots, but the audio must be a conspiracy. Shh. Maybe Russia did it. You think Russia did it, people? I think Russia did it. So, it's unbelievable when they say no evidence. It means, the people who are saying it means, I've been bought and paid for to shut up, or I've been blackmailed. What about the drop and roll, where 5 states shut down almost at the same time that dumped hundreds of thousands of late-night ballot votes? All evidence, all proven. This is in Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Virginia. It's not just the swing states in question. There's a lot of evidence that California was won by the Republicans and Trump. I mean, all these math impossibilities where Biden had a 1 in quadrillion chance of winning. 1 in quadrillion chance where everybody went to bed and oops, look what happened. And how can all these votes that went to Biden and been deleted from Trump all have the same vote ratio in all these states? It's statistically impossible, not improbable, not a glitch, not an irregularity, impossible. How about all these GOP poll watchers literally being kicked out of counting rooms? covering windows, making them stand so far back they have to use binoculars and still can't see. But you're a conspiracy theorist for saying this. Or you're a controversial racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, intolerant, violent hater. In other words, you're an anti-Islamist phobe conspiracy theorist. Well, isn't that cardboard they're taping over the windows? No, you're a conspiracy theorist. Maybe Russia did it. I think Russia did it. How about all the votes deleted or switched from President Trump to Joe Biden on live TV? You're a conspiracy theorist. Even though they used Dominion and other systems. That's proven. How about the U.S. Postal Service drivers speaking out after they were told to transfer almost 300,000 completed ballots across state lines after the election? Completed ballots. What? Oh, that guy could have been Russian. I think he was Russian, guys. Jesse Morgan, you're a Russian. Oh, my God. People, send me a check. I'll send you a bridge. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the broadcast, everybody. Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli, and I'm looking at the time, and I can't even believe it. So we have less than a half an hour left. So I'm going to try really hard, which is so difficult to do with some of these surreal articles. I want to mention as much news as I possibly can before the top of the hour when the show is over. Okay. Arizona Maricopa Board of Supervisors is playing games, trying to block a legitimate forensic audit of machines and ballots. See, people, there was even subpoenas to some of these swing states, and they've been ignored. That's called no rule of law. That's called a banana republic. And as I said earlier in the show, it's called a failed state. Next, Georgia County orders enough ballots to register entire state 2.5 times over after the election. Now, this is why Giuliani, Linwood, let's come to Montana and let's have a real trial. Let's have a real hearing. Let's have a real court. And let's create juries and show the world all this in a form that's easy to understand, that's obvious, and all the evidence needs to come out. Because if the courts don't even look at evidence anymore, again, pardon the repetition, we're a banana republic. Next, officials tell Gateway Pundit video evidence of Detroit's reported 3 a.m. ballot dump ready by the end of the week. Well, here we are, like 3 months after the election. When you get video or audio evidence from the powers that be who have bought and paid for and sold out or blackmailed these people, I guarantee you any little bit of evidence will be dubbed out, will be re-edited. And I'm not just talking audio. I am talking video, too. They have the technology. They can make any one of us rob a bank doing pedophilia. They can do anything they want, especially with audio. I've even heard it on shows I've been on years ago. Heck, the book I wrote, I've had copies come back to me where they deleted the introductory chapter, the table of contents, the first chapter, the second chapter. They've switched words around. They've deleted certain sentences. They've been doing this for years. And it's not just book burning, folks. They can do it on audio and video for years. They can change live time when somebody's speaking, their facial expressions. Live time. By like 1/10 of a second. I'm not kidding. I reported on, I mentioned these things. Next article. See, it's so hard not to go off into tangents and make comments. Next article. Data expert. You're going to love this. 200,000 Pennsylvania ballots were modified after the election. 200,000. and a sample of 100,000 Arizona ballots show they aren't even real people. People, come on. This is pathetic. This is a joke. Over 1 million people gave their lives for our freedoms and liberty, and this is what the people at the top of the institutions do to this country? Spit on their graves. Next, update on the big lie. Law professor confirms election fraud evidence is significant. More video evidence keeps coming out about the riots showing that Bland, Tifa, and other articles infiltrated the Patriots, and this was planned. Oh, that's right. We can't look at facts and evidence because you're a conspiracy theorist. You can only listen to the made-up narrative. Sorry, my bad. Next, accurate list of 2020 election fraud cases shows 81 cases total, 30 still active, and not one single case was looked at regarding evidence or merit. Not one. Does this sound like America to you? Next, 28 times media and Democrats excused or endorsed violence committed by left-wing activists. 28 times. 28. Next, Biden signs 3 executive orders. Mask mandate, social distancing on federal property, racial equality, and rejoins the Paris Agreement. Well, let's look at what the next one says. Awkward. This is an article. I saw the video. I heard the audio. After the inauguration, Bidens were locked out of the White House. They fired the Trump butler, and no one was there to open the doors. Oh, that's not a big deal, right? Well, let's read the next article. There was a hot mic, an open mic. Joe Biden was signing an executive order. And he said, and the whole world heard it, who watched this. He said, I don't know what I'm signing. But he signed the executive order anyway. Let me repeat this. There was a hot mic. Joe Biden was signing an executive order. He says, I don't know what I'm signing. But he signed it anyway. I want you to wrap your head around that, folks. That's called a puppet. That means everything has already been prepared. And the rule of law, and facts, and leadership, nothing means anything anymore. Next, Nancy Pelosi requested mobile crews of machine guns to shoot non-existent Trump supporters. Again, I look at articles, I read them, and I give you the bullet points that are published in the public domain. Don't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. I don't care how creative of a writer you are, how wide your imagination is. You can't make this stuff up. Next, Keystone Pipeline canceled. Leads to 1,000 lost jobs. I remember reading an article where Biden's first week of accomplishments was he actually killed over 100,000 jobs, made U.S. energy dependent. That means we are dependent on U.S. energy. I want you to think about that. So giving China access to the U.S. power grid, increasing drug prices, that especially for people who have diabetes who need insulin and epinephrine. In other words, he reversed Trump's executive order. You still think it's a left-right paradigm, people? Please, send the checks. I'll send you the bridges. Sent troops to sleep in a parking garage. Sent troops to Syria to start a new war. Banning fracking. being caught without a mask while telling you to do it, more laws for killing babies and harvesting baby parts, more laws to have sex with children. This is all, I don't make any of this stuff up. And now he's joined international agreements that hands our energy policy to Europe and China without Senate approval. That's called authoritarianism, folks. And you know there's more video evidence of Detroit's reported 3 a.m. ballot dump? They even have eyewitnesses, and I'm afraid to mention their names because I don't know if I should, but they're calling them modern-day Paul Revere's. And that where every ballot was suspiciously marked the exact same way, and where undervoting down-ballot races were marked in the exact same suspicious way. Seems like coincidence after irregularity, after glitches, after math improbabilities, and mostly math impossibilities. But it's okay, because now the Biden administration, we're not allowed to travel internationally or anywhere or open up businesses in some states, but the migrants who are stuck at the border are vulnerable to COVID, so they must be allowed in for their own safety. Again, not making this stuff up. This is sad. This is pathetic. This is shameful. This is an embarrassment to the United States of America. We might as well just change our name. Next, Jet sportscaster sues. I was fired for being white. Well, good luck. When I tried to sue, they told me I didn't have enough group self-pity points, that my victim group status wasn't high enough. Forget about merit. Forget about hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications. They now mean nothing. Oath, vow, duty, code now mean nothing. But yet, all the evidence that I've given, thousands of it, where the rich get richer, showing billionaire performance, trying to convince the people it's not about equality, fairness, tolerance, and diversity, that it truly is about money redistribution from the little guy, the bottom 93% of income earners, to the top 1 to 2% for the agenda. And the agenda is very scary. And this is what happens, folks, when you delegitimize work. When you demand to lower the bars of standards and expectations for a job based on what group you're in. This is what happens when you feel entitled to play the victim group status card. You delegitimize work. You think it's for your group, your hyphen, your pronoun, but it's not. These are divide and conquer strategies. And I've proved it over and over again. So when you demand no protection, no rights or restitution under the rule of law for certain people who are targeted, who are affected, you're giving basically runaway power, no checks and balances. You're enabling and protecting the most corrupt companies and corporations in the world. You're giving them liability immunity. You know, I had all these articles set up for a healthcare discussion with Dr. Shealy. I should probably mention some of these articles. But this is what happens, folks. We're giving free lunch to the elite because we've eliminated the rule of law for precedence. We've allowed brainwashing, hypocrisy, and double standards to be the norm, while they are biologically, chemically, and technologically and psychologically neutering the population. Maybe this last segment I'll mention as many articles as I can regarding health care I was going to discuss with Dr. Shealy. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the broadcast, everybody. Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli, and obviously Dr. Norm Shealy did not show up because of the flash floods in Missouri. So I'm going to mention some bullet points from healthcare articles I was going to discuss with Dr. Shealy that I had prepared, so I'm just going to go through as many as I possibly can and try to limit my comments as much as I can in this last few minute segment. And we appreciate you being here. We hope you have a great week. And Vincent and I will be on tomorrow talking about the importance of buying land, creating databases, and the things I talked about briefly earlier in the broadcast. So the first article regarding healthcare I was going to discuss with Dr. Norm Shealy is experts in epidemiology, occupational health, toxicology, physics, and engineering agree 5G radiation is toxic to humans. Next, when a Democrat, and that's in quotes, government spends $250 million to manipulate you, basically what this article was about was talking about PR, propaganda, in order to sell you about whatever vaccine is necessary. Next, California refuses to disclose COVID-19 data used to drive lockdowns. If your state, if your institution, if your healthcare provider, doesn't matter, if they refuse to give you information and studies like proving the efficacy of masks, for example, which we've proven a million times with other studies showing that it's a detriment. Okay, what happens is if you're willing to listen to these people when they're asking for liability immunity, which is no consequences, no accountability for their orders, you've got to be a moron to accept those orders without liability or consequences. That's not how America works. Next, heartbreaking. Flu shot kills healthy 19-year-old boy. Next, Dr. Fauci promoted hydroxychloroquine as a cure to COVID in 2005. Well, imagine my shock. Next, FDA-approved anti-parasitic drug ivermectin can kill the coronavirus within 48 hours, new study reports. But see, you're not supposed to know this stuff because they want you to take the vaccine. Next, New York wants to send COVID cases, contacts, and carriers to detention facilities. If you're still living in New York State, look in the mirror. You're nuts. Next, California scraps 10% of Moderna vaccine following severe allergic reaction. I think Moderna and Bill Gates is connected at the hip, by the way. Next, California health issues alarm over unusually high number of allergic reactions to Moderna vaccine. Next, California stops injecting Moderna's coronavirus vaccines after disturbing number of severe reactions. People, look at the adverse reactions. Look at the side effect. Look at the contraindication profile. That's why package inserts are getting smaller, because they don't want you educated. They want you dumb, taking whatever they say. Read those 3 parts of the package insert. Bring a magnifying lens. You need it because it's purposely getting smaller. In fact, Big Pharma is literally lobbying to get those things out of the PIs. You need to read it. I promise you, if you read this stuff about most drugs, you will not want to take it. Remember what Dr. Norm Shealy says. If you are diagnosed with an acute disease or disorder and it turns chronic in 6 months, that medication is starting to kill you. Okay? Next. Scary video after Pfizer vaccine. Woman suffers permanent neurological damage. Permanent neurological damage. Let me say that a different way. Permanent neurological damage. Next article. Californian dies after getting the vaccine in Sacramento. Next. 13 Israelis suffer facial paralysis. Me and Norm Shealy talked about Bell's palsy. After Pfizer COVID jab, 29 dead in Norway following Pfizer COVID vaccination. Again, my disclaimer, all published articles in the public domain. This isn't Rich saying this stuff. I'm not making this up. I'm not selling a narrative. I'm not being bought and paid for. Next, Portuguese health worker passes away after 2 days after receiving the Pfizer coronavirus. vaccine. Next, Moderna coronavirus vaccine causes dermal filler reactions, warns the FDA. Even bought and paid for institutions have to admit what's going on. Next, at least 23 people have died from corona vaccines in Norway so far. Next, Cuomo goes for broke, threatens $100,000 fines in New York hospitals that don't use their vaccines in 7 days. You can't make this stuff up, people. Next, COVID-19 outbreak in Auburn nursing home infects 139 residents, kills 24. Next, you know that the Washington Monument lights went out last night? National Park Service is investigating. What does that mean? Appreciate you being here, folks. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day.